In this video we are going to be talking about putting your Node.js application on a shared hosting. We are going to use Strapi backend that we have been using in Next.js and Strapi series, so you can think of this episode as a part of that series or as a standalone, it doesn't matter, because what we are going to be doing in this episode can be used pretty much on any Node.js application that you have, including something like Next, and so on. Also, just a warning before we begin, as you will see throughout this video, this is not an ideal situation and I think it depends on your hosting. For me, I wouldn't put my production Node.js applications on the hosting I currently have, because you will see in this episode that we will have some problems. Nevertheless, if you have a good hosting or you just want to play around, this episode is for you. So let's get started. Now, before we begin, let's get into some prerequisites. Of course, you're going to be needing a shared hosting, preferably with cpanel. You're going to have SSH access to your hosting, and that depends on your host. So some hosts are going to automatically turn this on for you. For some other hosts, you will need to contact them and say that you need SSH support. And of course, your hosting have to have Node support, which you can check with this. So if I go here, write Node, as you can see, you get this setup Node.js app. We are not going to be using this throughout this tutorial, but this is a sure way for you to know if your hosting supports Node.js. And of course, one more thing you are going to be needing is a subdomain, a domain, an IP address, something that you can connect to your server through your browser. So preferably subdomain. We are going to be using subdomain in this case, but you can also do this on your normal domain. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to create a subdomain for my project so that we can connect to it through the browser and see if our application actually works. So I'm going to go to subdomains right here, and I'm going to create a subdomain called Strapi. And it's going to be on my watchandlearn.com domain. So it's going to be strapi.watchandlearn.com. And this is going to be my document root. Now take note, at least on this hosting, for other hosting, it may be that the domain is going to be automatically public HTML than something else. But for me, I'm going to put strapi.watchandlearn directory inside of my document root. So it's going to be at the root of my home directory, not in the public HTML directory. And it's going to be called strapi.watchandlearn.com. Of course, you can change this to whatever you want. Create it. And now we have this subdomain set up. If I go to it right now, as you can see, nothing happens. This is just an empty directory. Since this is just an empty directory, we need to fill it up with something, and we are going to fill it up, of course, with our application. So now we want to move our application files to our server. Of course, this would be much better done with Git instead of something like FileZilla, Forklift, or even File Manager that you would find in your cpanel installation. But we are going to use the old-fashioned way and just move our files with something like Forklift in my example, but as I said, you can use FileZilla. However, if your hosting supports Git version control, like this one does, as you can see right here, you can do it via Git. I'm not going to go into that in this episode because some of the hostings don't have this, but I will be creating an episode on easy deployments with Git and cpanel. As you will see, that is also pretty interesting. However, we are not going to be doing that in this episode. So anyway, these are your options. I am using Forklift. And as you can see, currently this is my hosting on the right side, and on the left side I have my Strapi application. So if I refresh this, as you can see, now I have this strapi.watchandlearn directory. I'm going to go in it, and I'm going to copy everything from here except for node modules, cache, idea, tmp, all of those hidden directories, and everything else can just stay as it is. Of course, you can zip this up and then unzip it using the file manager or something like that. I have a pretty fast internet connection, so I'm just going to copy it like this. So once the files are copied, now we can SSH into our hosting account and run npm install in this directory right here. So for me to SSH into my hosting account, I just use this alias, and now I'm in. So now I'm right here. If I do ls, as you can see right here, I have strapywatchlearn.com. If I cd into that directory, I get all the files in that directory. Great. Now what we want to do, we want to run npm install inside it to install all of our dependencies. Okay, so now that the all Node.js dependencies are installed, what we need to do is we need to build out our administration. Most of the Node.js applications are going to have a build command, including next, and so on. So also this is true for Strapi. So you need to build your administration for production environment. And if you check out the documentation for Strapi, right here, you do it with node and production npm run build. However, as you will see, this is where we get into that area that the hosting is not really great. Actually, shared hosting is not really great for hosting these types of applications for one simple reason. And as you will see, we will try to run this on our shared hosting, and maybe this will work for you. It doesn't for me, but it's going to run into memory problems. So I don't have enough memory on my shared hosting to actually build the Strapi application. We are going to get around that, but as I said, not an ideal situation. So to do that, you would just do node env equals production. So we are setting it up to be production, and then we run npm run build. And now, as you can see, my build actually failed. I'm getting this spawn npm error. This is because I don't have enough memory to build this fully. So anyway, there is a workaround, of course. What you can do is you can go to your local machine. And now in here, I'm going to build my administration for production. And then I'm just going to push those files to the server using forklift in my case. So you need to do this. Same as you would do on your server, except I'm using this env right here before because I'm using fish shell, and fish shell requires me to have this. But if you are using something like bash, z shell, some other variant of bash shell, you won't need this, and probably you would get an error if you try to use env, node env production and so on. But this is just specific for me. Anyway, so let's build our administration for production. Once the administration is built, you can just go to your file manager or FileZilla, whatever you're using to push the files to the server. And I'm just going to go to my build folder and actually rewrite the build folder on my server. So you don't need to push the whole application, just this build folder. And of course, say apply to all and replace everything. Now, once this is done, we can now SSH to our server again. Of course, cd into our application. And now we can run our application. And to do that, you would do node env equals production and then npm start. Of course, depending on which application you are trying to set up on your shared hosting, this could be different for you. So just check your package.json or the documentation for the application to see how you would start it and run it on a server. So in our case, it's going to be node env production npm start. Okay, so now our application has been started. So how do we access it? So as you can see, it is running on localhost 1337. Now, if we go to our browser and go to strapywatchlearn.com, let's see what happens. As you can see, currently nothing is happening. Why is this? Well, this is because it is running on a port 1337. So instead of just writing this address, we can do 1337. And as you can see, we are getting our application. If I go to the admin, it is going to require me to actually add my username, password, confirmation password, and so on to create an admin user. So of course, depending on the application you are using, this may not be available for you, especially if you're setting up something like Next.js. You don't have any kind of administration, but instead of that, your front page should be shown right here. So we are using Strapi in this case, and Strapi is going to require us to actually create a user. We are not going to be doing that because I'm going to show you a way how you can push all of your Strapi data to your server so that you would already have all this set up. If you are watching my Next.js and Strapi series, this is going to be very interesting for you because we don't want to fill in our database again. But for now, we are running this on port 1337. Now, of course, you can leave this way, especially if you are doing something like an API. So for us, this is going to be API for our Next.js application. But if you are running something like API, it would even maybe be good to leave it on another port, just for security reasons, so that nobody can hack you because they don't know where our application is even running on. However, I'm going to show you a way how you can remove this port from here, because if you're setting up something like Next.js or Next, you don't want your users to have to write this port into your normal domain. So I'm just going to show you how you can quickly amend this situation. So now we are going to quit out of our application right here by doing Ctrl+C. So now our application is closed, and I'm going to add an htaccess file into my strapi.watchandlearn.com directory. And to do that on Linux, you would just do touch.htaccess. Now that we have this file, you probably have some editor on your hosting like Nano. So we are going to use that editor to open up this file. And now in this file, I'm just going to add some code. And what we are doing with this code is routing our 1337 port to the 8080 port, which is a web server port, right? So when you access a web page, usually you are accessing it on port 80 or port 8080. So now we are just going to press Ctrl+X. If you want to save this, you say yes, and we want a file name to write it on is going to be htaccess. Great. Now our htaccess is set up. Now we can run our server again. Our server is running. Let's check out if our page still works. So right here, now I'm going to go to strapiwatchlearn.com, but without 1337. And as you can see, this actually works because we are getting static code 404 because Strapi is an API application. But if I go to admin, as you can see, this works right now. Okay, great. Now you learned how to set up your Node.js application on shared hosting. You learned how to configure your htaccess file so that you don't have to use a port when accessing your site. So now we are going to take all of our data and add it to Strapi. And how do we do that? Well, very easily. First of all, I'm just going to go to my terminal and quit out of our application. So we are going to turn it off. And now I'm going to go to forklift, and in this TMP folder, as you will see, you have this data.db. So this is going to have your username, your password, and all of the data that you added to your application on your local host. So this might be useful for you if you don't want to enter that data all over again. So we are just going to go right here, refresh this. As you can see, we now have TMP folder also on the server. And I'm just going to copy this TMP folder over the TMP folder on my hosting. Of course, say replace. Once this is copied, you go to your terminal and start your application again. Now, if I go right here and if I go to strapi.watchandlearn.com admin, now as you can see, it's not asking me to leave my address and so on to create a new admin user because it already has an admin user that we were using on our local host. And to enter this administration, you would just enter your data that you are entering on your local host. So for me, this would be admin. And as you can see, I have entered my Strapi administration. If I go to movies, you can see that the movies work. I can change them, I can add new movies and so on. And of course, what is very important for us, if I go to strapywatchlearn.com movies, I get the API for the movies. So now we have set up our Strapi online, and when we finish up with our Next.js application, we can use this address to actually access all of the data that we need for that application. Now, just one more thing before we go. We started this with a Strapi start command, but what you actually want to do when running Node.js applications, and this doesn't even depend on the shared hosting or if you're using something like DigitalOcean, you should never run it like we did, but you should use something called PM2 or forever applications that are going to run your applications as a background services on your hosting. However, I tried to do this on my shared hosting and I bumped into that memory problem again, and actually my whole host went haywire for a little bit and I couldn't do anything with my SSH. So this doesn't work the best. And also I tried doing something similar to this on another account and it actually worked there, but my application went offline every few days or so. So I had to go SSH in again and then start the PM2 up again. So that's one more problem with that. For some reason on shared hostings, PM2 doesn't work very well and just gets shut off after some time. And you don't want to always check is your site online or not. So as I said at the beginning of this video, maybe it's better for you if you use other solutions like DigitalOcean or Vercel or something like that. Okay, so this has been it for this video. I will leave the code for the HTTP access in the description below. Thank you guys for watching and I will see you in the next one.